We'll call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. I want to acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory and the land at which we are meeting is the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Red River Métis Nation. As a council and a municipality, we will continue to work on moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Could I ask for a motion for the adoption of the minutes, please?
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held at City Hall on February 24th, 2025 be adopted as circulated.
It's moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Doyle. All those in favor? And that is carried. We have no delegations this evening. I'll move to open public hearing request for conditional use PC 3-25 Global Missionary Enterprises Limited at 2380 Sissons Drive. And I'll ask if there is anyone here to speak in favor of this application. Again, if there's anyone here to speak in favor of the application, I'll ask if anyone is here to speak against this application. Anyone here to speak against? I see no letters to be read out.
No letters, no.
Thank you. Does anyone, council, have any questions before we close the public hearing? Okay, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved, and I so move that the public hearing for conditional use P3-25 Global Missionary Enterprises Limited at 2380 Sissons Drive now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. All those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Worship. Council, in front of you is a request for a conditional use. Deals, of course, in a C3 Avenue commercial zone. The applicant, which is Global Missionary Enterprises Limited, is looking to place a C-can or a shipping container in C3 Avenue commercial zone. As allowed, or as it's not allowed without a conditional use, this is why the application has come forward. The owner would like to have secure storage on site, and it sounds like the shipping container is his choice of avenue. Council has approved a similar request in the past as followed, and the PC minutes 3523 is there for your reference. The application was circulated to the various city departments with no concerns. Public notices have been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius. So it's an administrative recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the conditional use application of Global Missionary Enterprises Limited to allow for a shipping container in a C3 Avenue commercial zone at the property 2380 Sissons Drive, which is legally described as Lot 2, Plan 21-353, Parish of Portage la Prairie, on the condition that the city manager approves the design.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. Any questions or comments? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Worship. On the face of this, I actually would vote against it, not seeing any representation from the building owner. My only concern, of course, is visibility. Not that there's anything wrong with the C-can, and I know we've used them in many places as secure storage. And I certainly don't have any concerns that the city manager would approve an inappropriate design. That doesn't even enter my picture. I would just like to see kind of, and I'm wondering why it's not, unless there is already some place of where it would be placed, and obviously maybe what would be surrounding it, what type of maybe barrier or a fence or hidden. I just, in that area there, I mean, there's been a lot of investment, and I just don't think that the visual appearance of a C-can in one location has a lot of merit without some kind of a maybe decorative border, for lack of a better way to say it. So if I don't have any of those answers, I would vote against it, or depending on what else I hear from council, maybe deny or move it forward to find out what the actual plans are. Unless there are some plans I'm not aware of, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, okay. Does administration have any comments to that?
Yes, through your worship, to Councillor Meyer. So the inclusion of the comment on the condition that the city manager approves design, we don't have any design standards that necessarily require a C-can, if approved by council as a conditional use, how to enclose it. However, we do have a good example from the previous, I think it was PC 3523, in which council allowed administration to work with the applicant to fence around the CCAN to obscure its view, primarily from the road and from customers. So I did drive by this property and did see that the CCAN is currently stored and visible from the roadway beside the property. So if council approved this resolution that is being presented by administration, my intention would be to work with the applicant to obscure the CCAN in a very similar way as previously done for PC 3523, in which there was fence cladding all the way around and preventing public view.
Can I ask a question maybe to planning? So you're telling me if the city manager drove and saw the CCAN, are we in a situation where we're asking for forgiveness instead of permission for the conditional use that it's already in place?
At this time, no, not that I'm aware of. The application was made to move a CCAN into the back of the building. At that point, we do follow the bylaw 8.12, which outlines all the regulations for CCANs. So there would have to be a fence around it. It would have to be enclosed. If it was residential, usually we make them put sides and a roof over it somehow to clean up the view for neighbors and so forth. In the commercial zone, all it's really required is to have it fenced around it properly. Not a wire fence, it would have to be a wooden fence. But yeah, to answer your question at this point, that we're aware of, there is not supposed to be a CCAN there yet because it is not approved at this time. Based on council's decision, we'll move forward from there.
Thank you. Just my other comment too is, like, I was very pleased with the last decision we made on the CCAN in a commercial and how we worked with them and, you know, putting the fence around, and it looks great from Saskatchewan Avenue. So if it was a situation like that, I'd be more than happy to have that move forward. Did you have something else?
Sorry, yeah, I
Councillor
guess
Mayer?
just for, thank you, Madam Mayor, just for clarification, you're saying that offense, through the mayor to, of course, our director of planning, that offense already has to be that's already part of the bylaw?
Yeah, so if we look at it under 8.12, there is a area in there that states containers shall be appropriately screened from view from all residential zones. So it does have to be enclosed. At this point, there's no residential zones around it. It's all commercial in behind and adjacent to it. So it does still require a fence. That's always been our regulation, is that we have a fence that's not wired and see-through. It has to be something that is screened appropriately so that you can't actually see the container.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that satisfies my concerns. I would be speaking in support of the motion now after hearing that, and with the condition that the city manager does approve the design. And I agree with you. I really like the way it was done on the avenue, and again, it does look part of the whole project. So thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Just a notice to if the CCAN is already there, though, just a reminder to ask for permission first. Thank you. Okay, we will move into our next public hearing. I'll open it, and it's request for variation PC 5-25 Paramount Investment Corporation at 106 Saskatchewan Avenue West. I will ask if anyone is here to speak in favor of this variation. Again, I'll ask if anyone is here to speak in favor of this variation. Maybe while I see that there's one letter of support in favor, so we'll read that now, if we could.
There is a letter from Paramount Investment Corporation. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Councillors. I would like to submit this letter on behalf of Paramount Investment Corporation in the application for variances at 106 Saskatchewan Avenue West. As you are aware, in the downtown area, there are a lot of older buildings that sit within the boundaries of the physical lot, sometimes sharing exterior walls. The property at this address used to accommodate the entire lot up to the back lane. The Portage Learning and Literacy Center is our tenant and has been for 20 years, and plays an integral part in helping people attain their education to better themselves, as well as helping immigrants settle in our community. In 2023, we had the council's approval to move forward with this addition, but the Learning Center wasn't in a position to do so, and we weren't sure when they would be. Today, we ask the City Council to approve these variations again so that the Portage Learning and Literacy Center can continue working within our community and help to make Portage la Prairie a better place. Thank you, Stan Lambert, Property Manager.
Thank you. I'll ask if there's anyone here to speak against this application. Again, anyone here to speak against this application? Council have any questions before we close the public hearing? Okay, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved, and I so move that the public hearing for variation PC 5-25, Paramount Investment Corporation at 106 Saskatchewan Avenue West, now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. All those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship, and Council. In front of you is a resurrection of a variation that was approved recently, back in 2023, if I'm correct. The applicant is reapplying, I'll call it that, even though it's a brand new variance request. It's not an extension. So the issue is to vary the following requirements in a C3 Avenue commercial zone. Part of that is taking the parking stall requirements of 5 stalls down to 0. Site coverage of 50%, which is increased to 88% site coverage. The rear yard requirement of 7.5 meters to be reduced to 2.1 meters. The east side requirement of 1.5 down to 0.5, and the west side requirement of 1.5 down to 0. The sketch and the location map are there for your reference. And as indicated, the owner wishes to have a 2,565 square foot of space along Saskatchewan Avenue, and to do the proposed addition would use most of the lot. Most other buildings along Saskatchewan Avenue run from the front sidewalk to the back lane, and the owner would like to match this building next door at 110 Saskatchewan Avenue West. Council had approved this variation request in the past, but as I mentioned, it has since expired, so this is not an extension. Just to be clear, this is a new variance request. The application has been circulated to various city departments. There have been no concerns. Public notices have been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius, and as you can see, there's been no objections. With that said, and I so move that the administrative recommendation that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Paramount Investment Corporation to vary the following in a C3 Avenue commercial zone. Parking stall requirement of 5 stalls down to 0. Site coverage of 50 increased to 88%. Rear yard requirement of 7.5 meters reduced to 2.1. The east side yard requirement of 1.5 down to 0.5, and the west side yard requirement of 1.5 down to 0. At the property known as 106 Saskatchewan Avenue West, which is legally described as Lot 187, 188, Plan 12 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. Any questions or comments from Council? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, I will be voting in favor of this motion. I do just want to be clear in respect to the letter of support is that this could not always be the learning center, right? I mean, when we make this variation request, we make it for anybody that is allowed to be in that location. Should the learning center decide to move, grow, enlarge, whatever, this is there going forward. Because I do believe, and I just wanted clarification that it does pass on to the next property owner. Would I be right in assuming that?
Mr. Pito?
Your Worship, I'll pass that on to Mr. Gessel to better ask your question if this conditional use for the parking requirement, Councillor Meyer, are you asking?
For all 5 of those, what we're approving the variation of right now.
I'll ask Mr. Gessel to answer those questions.
Can I get you just to repeat the question? I missed that.
Sure. And this is more in the letter of support references the learning center. And I get that. That's currently what it is there. If the learning center decided to move, all those that variation request, because of course they're building a new building there, always remains. It can't be changed, or it doesn't go I, if somebody else buys it, they still have that same variation. The only thing that would be, as city manager said, would be the parking spots, because the other stuff is permanent. Am I right in understanding it would always remain zero?
Yeah, so the parking spots that they'll be using are the apartment and behind, which the applicant currently owns. The business owns that, so they'll be designating spots for it. If the learning center was ever to leave and someone else took assumption of it, they would still be the same owner, so they'd still be able to use the spots. If the owner sold the building, at that point, I think it would have to be noted that there would have to be some sort of obligation or onusance on the owner to include the spots that he has designated from his apartment to that building, because they still will require parking spots,
That makes sense.
right? So if he doesn't have an agreeance to include, say, 3 spots for it that are designated to that building, it would be tough, I think, to push the sale through.
So it's really only inherent upon them releasing it to a different tenant rather than a building owner change. Is that right? It's only dependent on the releasing to another tenant, and not so much on or the opposite way, but on a building owner change. If he was trying to sell it, they'd have that option. They'd have to apply for another variance for parking.
Absolutely, that's correct.
Nope, I'm satisfied. Thank you, Your Worship.
So, okay, I just need to understand this. So the variance that we're doing though is putting it down to 0 stalls for this building. That agreement with parking spots is like an agreement between a tenant and a landlord, right? Like so I'm thinking if they sold the building though, like would it not just be sold as 0 parking spots, or is that possible?
That's correct. It could be sold as 0 parking spots, but then the new owner would have to come back in and apply for a variance to have it
As 0.
as 0,
Gotcha. Okay.
unless there was an agreement in that contract for the other spots.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee has no report in this part of the meeting.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development Committee, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Community Services Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Community Services Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Worship. Waterworks Committee has nothing to report in this portion of the meeting.
Thank you. Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
This portion of the meeting.
Could you say that one more time?
Thank you, Worship. Transportation has nothing to report in this part of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Public Safety Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. We have no items of deferred business. We'll move right into new business, 2024 year-end financial statements. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Worship and colleagues. This evening, we're to review and approve the 2024 pre-audited financial statements. These are the statements that will go to the auditor for our audit purposes. And you can see the general fund this year, we ended up with a surplus of $841,000. Primarily, a big chunk of that, as you can see, was $733,000. That was regarding our RCMP contract and some of the vacancies and things we did not get under the contract. So those dollars are returned to us. So that's a big part of the surplus. For the utility side, we ended up year end with a surplus of $3,713,000, and primarily very good revenue on our water and sewer revenue, a little bit of interest, and some other surpluses. So traditionally, these surpluses are put into the reserves for the 2026 budget. As you can see, the 10-year capital plan for the general fund is $5.2 million. So we got lots of things we can do with these surpluses. And the same with the utility fund. The 10-year capital plan is looking at 111.1 million in capital expenditures. And it's recommended that the surplus on the utility side go 2.5 million to the nutrient removal reserve to support the water pollution control facility, and 1.213 million to the utility reserve to fund future capital projects. And administration has given you all the variances of $50,000 or more. So the recommendation of administration, I would move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the 2024 pre-audit financial statements.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments from anyone? No? Okay, all those in favor? And that is carried. Next item of new business, January building reports. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, as usual, you'll see the planning permit numbers for both the city and the RM. As usual, I draw your attention to the combined, once again being a combined regional body. You will notice quite a discrepancy between the first month of January of 2025 compared to 2024. Knowing how much I love these reports, I am not disappointed in the least. You're going to see, obviously, there were some significant projects that were done last year. In addition to this one, of course, is commercial last year, where there hasn't been any this year. And of course, you're going to see going forward, the industrial permits, of course, will not be the same, or sorry, institutional permits will not be the same, obviously, because I believe that the hospital has done the bulk of their work. That said, it's really nice to see two things. One is that the repair, or the people, let's just put it this way, investing back into their homes through permits, which I know Madam Mayor referred to earlier. If you are doing something, please ask permission first. Really a good idea, just to see whether you do or whether you don't. But it just shows you the trend that people are investing back into the community, not only in a repair for residential, but obviously for a repair in commercial as well. So with that said, even though the number of permits were similar to where they were last year, obviously the difference from 15.7 million to 30,000 is quite significant. But once again, I'm not disappointed in those numbers at this point in time, and do know where they will be at the end of the year. So unless there's any questions, that's the end of my report. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Okay, next item of new business is the Infill Development Rebate Initiative interim report. That is Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. And again, this is a report that I will be brief on, but is extremely important and extremely exciting. Council, as you know, part of our strategic plan in two areas that this comes in, and let me just get some notes here. One is that this is a report describing how the Infill Development Rebate Initiative has done to date. I'm not going to review it because I think we're familiar with it. Basically, what it's designed to do is to give our developers the opportunity to get a rebate back from utilizing our infill property, and gives the chance for the existing neighborhoods, foster sustainable urban growth, and I could certainly go on and on. Falls in two parts of our strategic plan, one being the economic opportunity, which of course, as we know, promotes development, shows the commitment to growth that this council and this city has going forward, and of course it does also create a sense of urgency. The community safety and well-being portion of it, from having those done, and I'm going to just kind of quote, that really what it does at the end of the day is it fills in vacant lots. The downside of vacant lots we know include the potential for blight and decreased property values in the surrounding area. They can attract unwanted activity like littering or illegal dumping. We do know there's a lack of aesthetic appeal, potential environmental concerns, maintenance costs for upkeep, and limited usability until developed. Essentially, they can negatively impact a neighborhood's appearance and value. And I think that was part of the catalyst, or part of the impetus of why council wanted to go forward with this development infill rebate. We know that it's $800 a door that these developers can get back. And to date, I'm really proud to say that there have been 58 new infill units that have been applied and received the rebate. That totals of $43,500 in rebated development fees. It's not a loss to the city, it's a gain in the fact that these developments have been done on existing infill property that we have. So as the report goes to say, it says these applications represent significant progress encouraging urban redevelopment and maximizing existing infrastructure utilization. So it's a report that I'm extremely proud to bring back to council. And I do want to just leave it before there's any questions that for anybody that is looking at infill development, just go to the website. It's extremely easy to apply for. The program is eligible for projects where the initial construction permit was applied for after January 1st, 2024, and full occupancy is granted before January 1, 2027. So going forward, the eligible criteria is that you must be the property owner. Development project is located on unused or unutilized land within an existing urban developed area. The land must be previously or currently serviced by the city utility and eligible for one rebate per year at the discretion of the city manager. So, Madam Mayor, it's a report I'm extremely proud to again bring to council, with fear of repeating myself, because this falls directly into our strategic plan. And when people and developers take advantage of it, it just warms my heart that much. And that's the end of my report, unless there's some questions.
Thank you. No, I have more of a comment, and I just think for public information and perception, like, it's when you hear 58, you're just going, where's all these?
Oh.
But just understanding that it could be one building that has 6 units, one building that has this, right?
Right.
And so just, it's not per building, it's per door. I think that's important for people to fully understand.
Thank you for clarifying
Yeah.
that. But at the end of the day, it's still 58
And
new
it's
doors
great. It's
that we
great.
never had beforehand. So thank
Totally.
you, Madam Mayor.
Just helping people understand it. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Awesome. Okay. New business, the 2024 Wastewater Division and Biosolids Annual Reports. Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, what I'm presenting here tonight is the 2024 Wastewater Division and Biosolids Annual Reports. So the resolution is that the two, and just to describe what it is that we have in this, it's a complex package. There's a lot of reports in it, so we've narrowed it down to understand that 2 annual reports are attached to the agenda for your reference. The wastewater treatment report shows a very high compliance record, and the biosolids report reflects field averages being within licensed requirements, with no transport issues noted. If there are any specific questions, I can please direct them to Director of Utility, Ms. Friesen. So I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie accept the 2024 Waste Treatment Division Annual Report and the 2024 Land Application of Biosolids Report as presented, and authorize the submission to Manitoba Environment and Climate Change, as well as posting to the city's website. I so move.
Moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Porter. Any questions or comments on this? Councillor Porter?
Yeah, I just have a comment about the report, especially about the land applications of the biosolids report. The biosolids program, which took 747 tons of the biosolids, they were applied to the farm yards and used as fertilizers. I just have a question. I realize that there is some kind of criteria of putting these biosolids over top of the farmlands. So my question to you is, if the materials don't meet that required criteria, what happens to the materials?
Good question. We always select an extra couple fields just in case. The fields we typically use are in areas that we've used previous years, so we have a really good understanding of what the soil quality type is, where the groundwater tables are, those sorts of things. So we have an inventory of farmland and what the general criteria or how they meet it to begin with. But yeah, we always select a couple extra fields just to make sure we have extra land if needed.
Okay, and my other question would be that it's more the land that has to meet the criteria and not the biosolids program, the application, or the the way they process that in those little
Sure.
those containers?
Yeah. So there's. This sounds like it's not catching properly. The fields themselves have to meet certain criteria of background metals as well as soil type, distance to farm, like other houses, distance to waterways, that sort of thing. The other part of that then is the biosolids themselves have a specific criteria they have to meet in terms of metals, nitrogen, bacteria counts, those criteria. If the biosolids themselves ever didn't pass, the option then is to landfill it. But then we do a calculation of the background of the fields and the levels of the biosolids to determine how much of that can be added to that area of the field so that we're not over applying any one metal.
Okay, thank you very much, because I think I asked you this question last year, the same one, and so I'd just like to comment on it that I think I mean, I know they do it at all the other wastewater plants and stuff like that. They use it on the farmlands and stuff for fertilizer, but it's no cost to the farmers, correct?
That's correct. We process the biosolids to be a Class B product, so it's not sellable. If we were to further treat it through the implementation of other treatment processes and create a Class A, then it could be a marketable product. But under the regulations now, we don't guarantee any quality other than it doesn't exceed the provincial requirement, but we can't guarantee the minimums, I guess. So.
Okay. I guess, and so the point I'm trying to make here is that we are diverting this from the landfill. And so what is someone else's waste is somebody else's purpose. So I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Councillor Porter. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thanks, Councillor Nichols. Okay, we will move into another item of new business, submission of priority projects to the Manitoba Water Services Board. Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, in front of you, what I'm presenting is the we're submitting for utility priority projects to the Manitoba Water Services Board for consideration in their 2026 to 2031 project funding plan. Very important. So what we've done is, in the explanation of this is, the Manitoba Water Services Board is a provincial agency that assists municipalities with the development of water and wastewater infrastructure through funding programs. Each year, the MWSB accepts applications from municipalities for projects for consideration of funding, which they use to establish their capital funding plan for the next 5 years. A secondary purpose is to ensure the government of Manitoba understands the water and wastewater infrastructure needs throughout the province. For the 2026 to 2031 plan, municipalities are encouraged to submit their top 10 priorities projects by March 31st, 2025. Projects that qualify through the municipal water and sewer program are eligible up to 50% funding, and pipelines approved under the rural water development program qualify up to 2/3 of funding. Administration has reviewed and discussed the critical projects for utility infrastructure and intends to submit the following 10 projects as the city's projects listed in order of priority. I'll give you the headings on them. Number 1, water treatment plant upgrade and expansion for $27 million. Number 2, new water supply line to Dakota Plains First Nation for $500,000. Number 3, McKay Reservoir generator replacement for $358,400. Number 4, McMillan Industrial Park sewer upgrade for $7 million. Number 5, Jolene Force Main renewal for $20,000. Number 6 is the Poplar Bluff Force Main retwinning for $20 million. Number 7, McMillan Industrial Park water main renewal for $9,500,000. Number 8 is Park Drive water main renewal for $1.3 million. And number 9, Alexander Avenue water main service looping for $600,000. And lastly but not least, the number 10 is the water treatment plant GAC underdrain repair and media replacement for $700,000. So this work has all been prioritized. It's very important to us. It should be noted that the indicated prices are for 100% of the project. If approved, the city would be required to fund 50% of the amount shown. So it's the administrative recommendation, and I so move that Council of the City of Portage la Prairie authorize administration to submit the 10 priority utility projects as indicated in this report to the Manitoba Water Services Board for the 2026 to 2031 funding for considerations, please. And I so move.
Moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Porter. Any questions or comments from anyone? Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Worship. I have a few questions. First of all, you know, when I was on the Water Service Board, I know they have criteria on prioritizing and so on. Are these our priorities based on our criteria for projects, or do we try to fit in to get funding into the Water Services Board criteria? And I know there's probably very similar in some ways, but what are these actual? These are our priorities from 1 to 10 that we feel are the most important. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're generally our priorities. When there's a very long submission form that has different fields you have to complete on how these projects meet the Water Services Board mandate and how they fit into their different categories of priority as well. So this doesn't give quite all that information on how it meets those, but their priorities tend to be access to water where it isn't currently, but also regulatory compliance are kind of the two top things they look for, and the ones that can kind of hit the most of those two, as well as there's a few other, then it kind of goes in descending order as well. But I was told anything that addresses compliance is number one for sure.
Thank you. Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Worship. My second question is, the first one, of course, obviously the water treatment plant. I think we all know that's a huge project of ours that we were committed to. The 27 million, that's half our debenture? Is that what we're applying for?
So this is above and beyond the original ask to Water Services, which was 80 million. So this is based on the few changes we've had to make with the relocation of the intake. We had two pre-selection or two pre-qualifications of the main technical systems that so we have firm pricing on those. So this is an adjustment above and beyond that original 80 that as the design has gone further along and as we have more firm costs plus some inflationary considerations. So,
Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Worship. You sort of answered then my next question in terms of the 27 million. The Water Services Board has given us 40 million to date.
Correct.
What your impression is that they are open to upping or supplementing more cost sharing on this project of ours? Like, does that sort of happen from time to time as Water Services goes through their capital plan?
Yeah, absolutely. We were, I don't want to say encouraged to submit for more funding, but we were definitely told to put it in. City of Portage's project is high on their priority list, and as it's already underway, it is likely to be considered above new projects that haven't been added yet.
One more?
Councillor Massey?
It's like being in court.
You said two.
Did I say two? I apologize, Your Worship.
You keep going.
I have 8. No. The second one is the water supply line to Dakota Plains First Nation. If we're not successful in that, I mean, are we still able to go ahead with that with our existing resources?
I'll pass that to
Mr. Pito?
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Massey, that's a bit of a special application because of jurisdictional issues. First of all, Manitoba Water Services Board doesn't typically provide support to First Nations. However, all of the water lines in proximity to Dakota Plains are under their jurisdiction. So it also wouldn't cover any infrastructure on the First Nations that would be related to the Government of Canada. So we are trying to work with all parties involved, and Council in the reconciliation ceremony with Dakota Plains did commit to help Dakota Plains have a secondary source of water on their First Nations. So what we are doing is we're applying on their behalf and arguably on behalf of the Government of Canada to seek out those funds through this organization, and then leveraging that with federal dollars to provide and project support, I should say, from our team, which is obviously a very strong team for undertaking utility projects to get water to the First Nations. So we are applying on their behalf. You did note in the report that rural water lines are eligible for two-thirds, which we are traditionally only able as a city to go to 50%. And then we have had discussions with the Water Canada, if this application is successful, that we are hopeful that they would not only support the water infrastructure on reserve, but help with the funding to get the water to the reserve. A bit of a unique project, but we're looking forward to the challenge and trying to help our partners at Dakota Plains.
Thank you. Those are my questions, Your Worship.
You sure?
I am positive.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments? No? Okay, I think it's a great list and hopefully we're successful. So, all those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, next item of new business is award the tender for the supply of 2 single-axle dump trucks. Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
Okay, the issue at hand here is the award of the tender for the supply of 2 single-axle dump trucks, 25 OPS 007. The alternatives are to award the tender to the inland truck and equipment or do not award the tender. The analysis behind this tender was advertised on the city website as well as Merck's, and the tender closed February 25th, 2025. 10 companies were contacted and we received the following 5 bids. There's a little table here that tells you the company's name and the 5 of them, but the first one was Inland Truck and Equipment, Peterbilt, Maxim, Falcon, Connection, and Connection Truck Center, sorry. The companies were given the option to provide a trade-in value for the existing trucks, but it was determined by administration that the values were lower than what could be expected from a sealed bid auction, and therefore the trade-in value was not considered in the evaluation. In the table, it gives the company's name, the bidder's price, including GST, as well as the points from high to low. The budget amount from the approved capital for this purchase is $400,000. One truck is used by the utility department and the other is used by operations department. So the cost will be shared between the 2 departments. Inland's submitted tender met all specifications required, and they were the first top bidders with 92.97 points. And Inland has supplied equipment to the city in the past, and we were satisfied with the quality and the service. The tender price net of GST is $356,105.63, and this is approximately $44,000 under budget. So it is the administration recommendation that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie award the tender for the supply of the 2 single-axe dump trucks as specified in 25 OPS 007 to Inland Truck and Equipment for the tender price of $356,105.63 net of GST. So I so move.
Moved by Councillor Porter,
Yep.
Seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any questions or comments on that? Trucks are expensive. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Next item of new business is the award the tender for residential solid waste contract, Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
Sorry, I forgot to bring some water. So the issue here is to award the 3-year contract for the collection of residential solid waste 25 OPS 004. The alternative is to award the tender to MWM Environmental for option 1. The second alternative is to award the tender to MWM Environmental for option 2, or do not award the tender. The background analysis on this is that the tender for the collection of the residential solid waste was issued for a 3-year contract from August 1st, 2025 to July 31st of 2028. The tender was advertised on the city website and Merck's. 6 companies requested copies of the tender and 2 bids were received, but but one bid did not achieve the minimum score of 40 points of a maximum of 60. Therefore, their financial submission was not opened. This tender requested the bidders to provide pricing on 2 options. Option 1, which was MWM Environmental, their price was $2,070 or $2,070,279.88 with a score of 94.92. With option 1, all prices include $102,000 for the waste collection tags, 5% GST, and $650,000 in land tipping fees. Option 2, MWM Environmental, for the price of $2,152,215.58, and the points that were awarded were 94.92. All prices on this included 5% GST and $650,000 in land tipping fees, and 4,650 carts, which hold 363 liters each. Grab a drink here. So the highest bidder for both options was MWM Environmental. Their submission was excellent, with detailed information on how they could perform the services. They have many contracts throughout the province, met all qualifications, and provided positive suggestions for future contracts. In addition, they included in their RFP consideration for those with physical limitations. MWM employees will roll out the cart to the curb and back to the house for any residents physically unable to do so, and this service will be provided at no charge. They also have a facility located in the city where their dedicated trucks would be parked when not in use, and this would reduce the chances of waste collection being interrupted due to bad weather. Option 1. This includes the collection of solid waste from all residential dwellings, including multiple family dwellings, the current system in place. It includes a fixed price of $2 each for approximately 51,000 waste tags over 3 years, or $17,000 a year. And for comparison, the dollar value is $34,000 a year for the extra bags or bulky items. This option is approximately $50,000 over the 2025 budget. However, this is mainly due to the increase in the tipping fees charged at the landfill, as the collection fees at the landfill are only slightly higher than the current contract. Option 2. This includes using an automated side tip truck with 363-liter rollout carts. These carts are included in the cost of the bid, which the city would own at the end of the contract. It does not include collection from the multiple family dwellings with 6 or more units, and this option also includes bulky waste collection 4 times a year. The bid price for the bulky waste collection would be $89,000 or $29,667 annually. For the supply of the carts, the cost would be paid over 3 years of the contract. The carts have an estimated life of 10 years, so we can expect the price of the future contracts to be somewhat lower. The price of the lowest bid for the 4,700 carts is $385,400, and this cost would potentially be funded from the Environmental Reserve. There would be a revenue loss of approximately $71,250 in 2025, but that's from canceling collection of apartments with 6 or more units, and this revenue loss will be accompanied by a similar reduction in costs. This option is approximately $109,759 over the 2025 budget. If the proportional costs of the carts are paid from the Environmental Reserve, the remaining over budget would be approximately $56,000. This amount includes pickup of bulky waste, which currently costs users approximately $34,000 a year. The benefits of the rollout carts include decreased collection cost, increased safety for workers, increased security of the waste, that is, the waste is not accessible by dogs or other animals, If this option is chosen, the intention would be to switch to a rollout cart system for the recycling when the next recycling contract is awarded. For either option, the solid waste fees should be increased to reflect the increase in tipping fees charged at the landfill. The fee increase will be in the range of $8.50 to $10 annually per household. It is the administration recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie award the contract for the collection of a residential solid waste, option 2, for the 3-year period, August 1st, 2025 to July 31st of 2028, as specified in Tender 25 OPS 004, be awarded to the MWM Environmental at the tender price of $2,152,215.58 net of GST or other option.
No,
Oh, that's it.
moved by Councillor Porter, seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any questions or comments on this? Councillor Porter?
Yes, I have a few comments. First of all, I do have one question. Well, I have a question first of all. I might have a couple questions. But I noticed in option 1, it does not include in here the cost of the tags or the administration costs behind this method and how it's calculated. So that's my question to administration. Do you know how much that collection tag system that we currently have, how that works and how much it's costing us? Is that added into the cost of that?
Mr.
Are
Pito?
we doing that on our own?
Through your worship to Councillor Porter, I'll pass that question on to our Director of Operations to clarify.
So currently the $2 tags are available at 10 different places around the city. The city collects those, the dollars for those, but it's passed directly on to the contractor. So the city doesn't see any of that money. It goes straight to the contractor. So yearly that costs people that buy them approximately $34,000. Excuse me. But it, like I said, it just passes through the city. We don't see any money from that. So the administration of it is not covered in the price of the tags. It's not a huge amount, but it does take up a little bit of time and work for our staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so my other comment here is that actually option 2 is cheaper in the bulky waste, but I guess what I'm wondering, going to a new contract, a different one than we're used to, that option 1 actually is kind of similar to what we had, but going to 2 is totally different. And so my question, if option 2 was ever, it happens to be, and it is our administration recommendation. I guess my question to you is because this is so new, how would the communication to our city, what does that look like to start something like in this new thing that we're kind of looking at?
Mr. Pito?
Through your worship to Councillor Porter, I'll make a few comments and I'll invite our Director of Operations to add anything I missed. So anytime you have a major change for an essential service, people see the pickup of their garbage every week. So they're very familiar with how it works currently. When you have a change, communication is going to be key in success. And we have a lot of examples of municipalities that handled this very well in terms of conversion to carts, and some that there could be some lessons learned. In the bid package, the contractor who's put forward the cart system does have a communication strategy recommended, and they do participate in open communication with the public. We did put this bid forward especially early, so we would have, we suspected there could be a change in our level of service or the way we deliver it. So I believe it's in July when the contract would become active. Maybe let our Director of Operations correct me if I'm wrong there. But we have a number of months to communicate to the public how we're going to change, what are the new expectations, and then also we take our part, but also the contractor takes some responsibility in this bid award. I will pass that on to the Director of Operations if I missed anything key.
Yeah, you covered most of it. We did include in the tender a request for the contractor to provide a plan and carry out the plan. This particular contractor has had a lot of experience doing that, so that is a very good sign.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, and the only other comment is in the bus. I'm going to say, you know, in the last 18, 20 years, what I've noticed is that our solid waste has changed. We are more of a throwaway society now because things are made cheaper, so they don't last as long. And so we tend to throw things more out there. And to me, I just can't imagine keeping up with this hand bombing service that we're doing. Doesn't matter what contractor it is. I think that it's not healthy for our employees or their employees, pardon me. And you know, in the time that we're in now, I just find it painful to watch these people picking up these overloaded garbage cans, going to the and hand bombed into these machines. I don't know how many times I've driven around and seen your two garbage can limit filled with bags, no lids, and that's probably, there's no lids because maybe they're overfilled, or maybe they don't have any lids anymore because they flew away. But so there's a lot of advantages to this, and that the animals, we don't have to worry about the animals going in there and grabbing your garbage anymore because they've got tops, and they're permanent tops. They just lift up and down and stuff like that, or go missing or fly away, or the weather where it rains and because you don't have a lid on your garbage, it freezes, and then the employees of the business here can't get your garbage out of your waste cans because it's froze solid. And then the other thing is what else was going to say? I mean, even your cans getting blown away and stuff like that and getting broken. You know, the new service of the hand bombing and stuff, they're bigger containers, they hold more. They are easy to pull. They just bring them out to the end of the driveway with one hand. They're light. I've seen this in Calgary. I've experienced this in Brandon when I lived there. They all have this kind of service. I just can't believe that we've gone this long doing the service that we're doing here. And like I said, I feel for the people that are working at a service still hand bombing this kind of stuff when there's better ways of doing it. And I feel that option 2 would be the best way. The other thing is that what I appreciate about MWM is the fact that those who have physical disabilities, they give you that option, and they will come, and their employers will come and pull your garbage or your cans out, or your solid waste cans out, and roll them out in the front for you and put them back as well. And I think that's a wonderful service. And so my option definitely, I guess in the end here, is I'm definitely going to opt for option 2 because it's a recommendation of the city, but I truly feel that this is the right way to go. So
I just have a couple comments on that. The administrative did recommend both, either or, so they didn't get, they're making sure that council is making this decision, because the other thing was that, yeah, the accessibility was a concern for me, but finding out that residents with accessibility concerns can register with the company and have that the help with that, I think, is huge. And then I was also, the last time we were making this decision, and I can't actually remember how I voted, however many years ago that was. So, but the fact of the new technology, right? How long the arms are and that they can get between parked cars. And if there's lots of snow, they can still get to those things by the way the technology works, I think is important. I sort of also look at how people I know that use the system. I have an 88-year-old father who likes the system in Brandon and gets those cans to the curb with no problem. And so I think that we'd have capabilities of that. So I'm definitely in favor of this recommendation for option 2. Councillor Nichols?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question, and probably to administration, in terms of the 6 units or more, what any options for those buildings in terms of, or where would we see them in this proposal, please?
I'll comment just before that. I do think a lot of our buildings already do it. So there's a group of those in there that have all of these units, but they might not be doing it yet. So there'll be some transition there. But normal's not the right word, but typically somebody who owns an apartment building is responsible for their waste. So yeah.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Nichols, I think you covered it a bit. A lot of them do have a large garbage bin that we actually contract to collect. That's where that revenue in, revenue out came. It's referenced in the report. So they will have to either find a private contractor that would probably be a similar cost to what they're paying now. There is a plan to make sure that we reach out to those owners of those properties in advance, communicate those options, and work with them. The reason why some of the multi-family units past 6 or higher, you don't just provide bids for, because you get a situation where you'll have a small parking lot and you could have 20 bins all lined up beside each other. That was one of the failures that the city of Brandon did when they initially brought in the smaller bins, and they had to scale it back and actually hit that cap because they had units with 20 bins, very easy to confuse which bin's which, and it did cause a lot of issues. So this number has been seen as successful in other communities, and that's where we're going to draw that line and then work with the units that we are very familiar with, the units that do cross that line, and communicate early and make sure we can facilitate continued trash collection, or garbage collection, I should say, as we move through into the new contract.
Thank you.
And the other comment I'd like to make too is that we recently in our meetings here, we've talked about our service requests, and we have seen an incredible increase in the amount of numbers of service requests, complaints to do with garbage pickup. And I know that our staff has had lots of conversations with our contractors, but it is a staffing issue, right? It's a staffing issue when it comes to quality of service. And so if you read studies, it shows that workplace injury, garbage collectors with that throw, that's #1 of workplace injury, right? So you can see why they either have people not wanting to do the job or injured on the job and therefore off. So if we look at service levels in our community, it's important that we follow what those service requests say. Service requests, Facebook messages, text messages, I'm sure we've all around this table got them, to do with garbage not being picked up. So I think it's a clear sign we need a change in the service, how we offer service in our city. Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship to administration, I'm wondering if you can comment on whether or not MWM Environmental had noted what would happen in the case of additional solid waste outside of what would fit in the bin. Keeping in mind, I understand the 4 times a year bulky item pickup, but there are definitely circumstances that we see in our city, especially around the holidays, where we have more bins that we're allowed to put out around the holidays. And in this case, we're only dealing with 1 garbage bin at each residential property. And now we have that bin that's full, plus additional bags. How would that be handled by the contractor?
Through your worship to Councillor Doyle, I'm going to have to ask Ms. Loquie Jobin if she has an answer for that one.
Yes. So currently, the bins that were allowed are 100 liters apiece. So 200 liters is the maximum currently that you're allowed to put out. So this we decided to go with larger bins. We could have went with 240 liter, but we went with the 343 liter to help cover off the possibilities of people that regularly need larger amounts. The other option, if we do see it as an issue, MWM, it would be in an extra charge, but they would be willing to set up a drop-off area if required.
Thank you, Your Worship. And one more question. With the 4,700 carts that would be delivered as part of this contract, how many extra carts does that allow for compared to the number of doors that they would be servicing?
That's a good question.
Yeah, we still do need to go through those numbers. We didn't want to spend a whole bunch of time until we knew which way council wanted to go. Before that actually happens, we'll verify the numbers and make sure we have, a good amount of spares on hand.
Thank you. I am in favor of option 2. I will say I am a little hesitant because I have lived in 2 major urban centers when this program first rolled out, and it's not without its hiccups. And I understand that MWM has been in the game for a long time and have probably worked out many of the kinks that we experienced many years ago. So I would say I'm in favor of option 2.
Thank you. We're going to get ahead of the message, and we're going to be all really good about talking about waste management. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I may just sit on a different side, just to get my opinion out here briefly. I'm having trouble supporting option 2 at this point in time. Since we had first started discussing the service issues that we've had, is more of a service supplier issue than the way we did things. So change in service supplier will resolve some of those issues. I've had a number of conversations, although anecdotally, and I've got probably 50% of our constituents say they like it the way it is, and 50% that would like to go with the other side. So I couldn't really come to a kind of a firm answer on that part. A couple of concerns with it. One is that I do appreciate MWM, and I've got no issue with the company at all. But we're making commitments now to disability, and you can apply if you're disabled, and they'll come and get it. I just see problems. I'm going to support whatever this council decides is around the table, but I just see more issues coming up with that than it will resolve at the end of the day. I see issues with garbage cans blowing all over the place, even though they are 363 liters. When they're empty, they're just like a big wing, like anything else. I just feel we're going to have more issues than we have currently with the current process. We're going to have obviously some issues with extra bags and so on as well. So for other reasons that I won't have to go in now, most of my questions were answered satisfactorily through other councilors around this table. But at this point in time, I'm not going to support option 2, keeping in mind that I will support whatever this council decides as a whole. So thank you for allowing me to say that, Your Worship.
Yeah, for sure. And valid concerns, Councillor Meyer. Any other questions or comments? No? Yeah. All those in favor? Option 2. Yeah. And that is carried. Okay, next item of old business. We have one item of old business, second and third reading of Council Indemnity Bylaw 25-8773 to amend 23-8749. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship and colleagues. As you know, last council meeting, we gave first reading to bylaw 25-8773. This evening, I won't go through the report. I think you're all familiar with the bylaw for paternity benefits for council members. So I would, there's been a slight change of the bylaw since first reading to acknowledge the Municipal Act, which of course governs everything we do. So I would move that Council Indemnity Bylaw 25-8773 be given second reading.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments? Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Your Worship and colleagues. I spent the last since the last council meeting talking to people about this because it is different. We're showing leadership in our council, and it was amazing the amount of support that people have when you say we're trying to be more inclusive for people who want to serve on council. Because what the community wants in the end is good people around this table, which we have right now. So that was one thing. The other thing is, you know, I talked to some other municipalities that I've known very personally, and they are quite excited about this change. Because we all know it's not about the money. It's about allowing people, and we all have challenges in our lives when we want to run for council. There's time commitments, family supports. Surely to God, having a child should not be an impediment. So I'm supporting, of course, this bylaw, but it was quite an eye-opener, and that's why we do first reading and have time to look at it and think about it. But I think this is showing leader. One of our media outlets said this is going to show City of Portage is a leader in inclusivity in municipal governance, and I would agree with that statement. So I support this. It may not be the answer to all the issues when people decide to run. We all know running for council is a big decision. You got to think about your family. You got to think about time commitment, your privacy, social media. We all are subjected to a lot of challenges when we decide to run. But this is just one thing I think that says, hey, we open the door for you if you want to run. This is off the table now. So I support this.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I actually have nothing to add in the fact that I just want to echo Councillor Massey's words verbatim, and I just really think that this council is moving in the right direction in order to make it inclusive for anybody that wants to sit around this table. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Councillor Nichols?
Thank you, Your Worship. I spoke in favor of this when it came for first reading, and I continue. I think it's a wonderful barrier remover, and we need to move forward, so I'll be in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Porter?
Thank you, Your Worship. I can tell you as a woman, and I'm older, I don't plan on having any more kids, but I can tell you right now, this would have been appreciated very many years ago. So I want to thank everybody here for your forethought into this, and thank you.
Councillor Doyle?
Well, I might as well jump in here. As a soon-to-be grandfather,
Yeah.
I'm just excited that a bylaw like this opens up doors for my children.
My comments is that I know this is for parental leave, so it's a gender inclusive bylaw as well. But we did purposely put this on the table to coincide around the time of International Women's Day, because as much as things are better for women in this world, we still have a long way to go. And so, just so you know, the theme for International Women's Day this year, the international theme is Accelerate Action. And that's what the City of Portage Council is doing today. We're accelerating action on this matter. So we need to be proud of us all for doing this. I hope we see other municipalities around our province follow suit, because we want to see lots of voices around our table. We want to see the best people around the table who are there for the right reasons to help move communities forward. And this is just one way that we are opening the doors for that. So I'm proud of this. All those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I would move that Council and Deputy Bylaw 258773 be read a third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. We will adjourn council at 7:14 p.m. and move right into committee. Sorry, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. With Your Worship's permission, I do have to leave due to a previously booked commitment, if that is okay with yourself, Madam Worship.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Meyer.
I've already read what's in committee, and I'll look forward to the comments when I review it online later on tonight.
Exactly. Thank you. Call committee to order at 7:15 p.m. We'll move right into Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Worship and colleagues. In committee this evening is an opportunity to look at our organizational and procedures bylaw 258774. This is something we have to do at least once in our term of office. And so there's the review staff have reviewed our bylaw, and there's some minor updates in wording, and such outdated references to gender, addition of advisory groups, updates to names and positions, and update to our current, more accessible bylaw format. So there's nothing to decide here this evening. This will go for first reading at our March 24th, 2025 council meeting, but it is there for your review. Please take the time to look at it. This is one of the most important bylaws of councils. This is how we do our business and how we organize ourselves. So have a look at it, and it will come to you for first reading on March 25th, 2025.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing to report, but I do have a question. Through Your Worship, to administration, if I could ask for an update on the infill development incentive program, possibly.
Not Councillor. I'm giving you a new title.
Yeah.
Since you're, Mr. Pito?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Nichols, we did have some information on the council agenda today, but we are about 6 months into the incentive program you're asking about, Councillor Nichols. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
So we're continuing to advertise and promote the program. We have the opportunity for developers and working with the planning district. So if they have questions, they can always come to us. But so far, the program has been successful, and we're moving forward. A reminder that our infill, and this wasn't discussed in the report, so for additional information, our infill fees are actually slightly cheaper than our newer construction in greenfield applications. They're $750 per unit. So we're continuing to advertise this. We did a midterm check-in, mid-policy check-in after about 6 or 7 months that we presented to council, but still continuing to advertise the program, still continuing to generate interest. And I will say, and it wasn't mentioned in the report, I mean, several of the lots that have applied, several of the developers who have applied were on lots that weren't developed for 30, 40 years, were vacant in our community. So I'm really happy to how the project has progressed and how the program has progressed, and I hope to continue seeing it progress. Thank you for the question, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you.
Thank you. And another comment in this committee report is the 2025 Business Storefront Improvement Grant. Intake is now open. The Business Storefront Improvement Grant intends to help business owners in Portage la Prairie improve the face of their business by providing funds for exterior building upgrades. In addition to improving the appearance of an individual building, these upgrades are expected to contribute to overall business enhancement. The Business Storefront Improvement Grant is a matching grant offered by the City of Portage la Prairie that will provide up to 50% of the project cost with a maximum municipal contribution of $3,000 per project, from a total fund of $15,000. Applicants must be a small business, non-profit community organization, or a cooperative located in the public place within the Main Street area on Saskatchewan Avenue and 2 blocks north and south of Saskatchewan Avenue, or on Provincial Highway 240 within the city limits. Visit our website to view the 2025 Business Storefront Improvement Grant Notice. Eligibility criteria and application forms are on there. The deadline for the application submission is Monday, April 14th, 2025 at 4 p.m. Projects must be completed by December 5th of 2025. Completed applications can be submitted to Portage and District Chamber of Commerce or City of Portage la Prairie, and websites will be, and the information will be on there. So I wanted to include that in the report.
Thank you. That's great information. It's really been impressive to see the investments that our businesses have made to their storefronts along Saskatchewan Avenue, not only the ones who've accessed this program, but just in general. So I think if we can keep this going and seeing some great projects, it'll just get better and better. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I apologize. I had 2 other verbal reports to give under finance that I would like to give.
Sorry. Just kidding. We'll go back to finance. Councillor
Well, it could be
Massey.
4 more. No. These are short, Your Worship, but I think it's important information. First of all, just a short note. As you know, after the budget, we've done some videos in the past. I've done 3, thanks to Kathy McGregor and Nathan Pito and our mayor, who's had input into them as well. The one is up on our green space policy and over the next 3 years. The next one will be on our doubling of our road budget. And the third will be on our great CSO program. So the first one is up. I believe the second one will be going up this week. And then the week after will be the third one. Please share them, get people to look at them. They're not that boring. They're 90 seconds. The mayor said they have to be 90 seconds to make sure they fit in with social media. So I stuck to that as best I could. So that's one thing. The other thing, Your Worship, I want to just make council aware is Vice President of FCM, Kathy Valentino, sent me some. Pardon me?
President, sorry.
No, FCM.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
Oh, she's president of AMM, the
Sorry,
vice president of FCM. She sent me some material about her recent trip down to Washington. This has to do with the tariffs. And as you know, this is going to be a big topic for us over the next little while. But she did send to me something really important, I think, that for us as municipal leaders, a statement by the U.S. Conference of Mayors on impending U.S. tariffs. And they have come out against these tariffs. They have come out in support of the current trade agreements. This is all the mayors in the United States conference. So I think just going down there to get that, I think, was a great accomplishment. And I think one of the things that our mayor has said a lot is we need information on this topic. We need good information, not disinformation, not misinformation. And there's too much of that. And so there's a great website that I would direct you to. She's asked me to make you aware of it. And it's a federal government website. And it's www.connecttocanada.com. And I think it's a federal website that'll give you so much information on what this tariff issue is about, some numbers about the trading, the stuff that is going on, and sometimes, unfortunately, from some of our other leaders and down in the United States, they need to hear this information of what is really going on. So Vice President Valentino sent me this, but it's a great package of information. The last thing I would just want to say on this is we as a city, of course, are doing a lot of great things thanks to our administration. You know, we've, as I think our Facebook post showed, but I want to highlight, we've advanced a significant portion of our capital purchases to mitigate supplier chain challenges. Last council meeting, we had our procurement policy amended to include a procurement with canoe buying groups like canoe trading, and we're going to be working with our chamber on how businesses were impacted. So I think we're not sitting back waiting. We are actively moving on things, but I just wanted to make council aware of this information. Please take the time to look at some of these websites. The FCM website is very, so that when we start dealing with some of these issues, and I hope next week at FCM board meeting that I can bring back some more up-to-date information. But as you know, this thing is changing hour by hour at times. So, but I think we need to stay on top of it as a city, and I commend our administration for at least starting to take action now. So that's my report, Your Worship.
It's good. And I think, Councillor Massey, you're right. And having Vice President Valentino there representing is great for Manitoba as well. And I spoke to Mayor Gillingham, who represents with those meetings with the mayors of the U.S., the big city mayors. And it's nice having all that representation from Manitoba. So we have great support. So you're right, hour by hour. Councillor, no, why am I? I'm yeah. Mr. Pito.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to comment, and Ms. Lopke-Jobin made me aware of this on our recent truck tender award, is that we're actually seeing tenders have a giant asterisk and saying not subject to tenders. So for example, our contract award for $356,000, the winning bidder did not have that in the inclusion of their tender. However, others did. So if we had awarded a tender over $200,000 that came to council, and suddenly tariffs that were unexpected at the time of bidding came into place, we'd actually have to bring this back to council for approval. So more of just a heads up to council that we are seeing this start to impact our tendering process, and we'll make you aware as that progresses and as we see the changing tides of trade right now and how that impacts our procurement processes. But that was the first time I think we've seen that type of provision in our bids.
Interesting. Okay. You're good with city planning? You're finished with that?
Yes, that concludes my report.
Okay.
And sorry to catch you off guard there, Mr. Pito, in terms
you.
of it, but you handled it well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Community Services Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Community Services Committee has nothing to report unless any of my colleagues. Looks like Councillor Massey has something to say. He's been quiet tonight, so.
No, this is great news. Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Just wanted council to be aware, and this came from our chair of the library board, Lita Maximic. I don't know if she's reached out to our mayor yet about the funding, but they were very appreciative of the funding they got this year. As you know, they made a case for an increase. We granted it to them. My understanding at the board meeting we just had was the RM also matched the increase based on the cost sharing between the city and the RM. So they basically have gotten now their funding of what they asked for going forward. So they just wanted to let council know the thanks, because it just boosted morale over there, just seeing the support for the library that we've given them. Thank you, Your Worship.
Good to hear. Under community services, on my two hats I wear, I was involved in the International Women's Day event with PCRC last week, as well as the Chamber and the Military Family Resource Center. There's a partnership to put that on with Central Plains Cancer Services. But the reason I'm bringing it up tonight is because three of the council members around this table, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Nichols, and Councillor Meyer, all stepped up to volunteer to bartend that event. And it was great. You guys stole the show once in a while, but I appreciated you all standing up for our community and doing that and being the only men in the room. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Stealing the show was definitely not our intention. And I would just like to say it was a pretty remarkable event. I have never attended one. And having been one of the three males in the room, I really appreciated the message that was put out by both the presenters, and I thought it was a very good event with a very good message and lots of unity within the room.
Thank you. Okay, Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Waterworks Committee has nothing to report in committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Your Worship. Transportation has nothing to report. I'd just like to make a comment and put a shout out there for this spring thaw coming here. And so lucky for us, it's slow and it's melting slow. So, but looks like our transportation department has been keeping up on some clogs and some minor things that need to get done before hopefully we don't have the big thaw. But just a reminder to all the residents out there that it is pothole season, so drive carefully, especially when you're going down the Crescent. There's some big ones there turning off, I guess, towards Canadian Tire. So if you happen to notice that showing up again, they sometimes come back every year and haunt us. And so if you see puddles of water around there, usually there might be a bit of a pothole underneath it. So if you happen to see something or hit it or concerned about it, please make sure that you put a service request in, and it will get looked at as soon as they can. So thank you. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm trying to decide if drive safely follows under transportation or public safety, but I guess it's a bit of a gray area. But I do not have anything to report this evening.
Thank you. Thank you. And finally, I think it's important for us to recognize all of our levels of government. And first of all, we know on this weekend, we saw our former Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, finish his role for our country. And I think it's important that no matter what your what are your partisan beliefs, it's important to recognize somebody who puts 9 years of himself to serve our country and to try and move things forward. And I just want to thank him for his time and dedication to Canada. And then in the same breath, I guess we will congratulate our new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, new in the role, and it'll be interesting to see what the next few weeks are, but I wish him well. We all know running for these seats is not always easy, but hopefully he will be ready for the job, and our country is in a place that we need strong unity, and hopefully in the seat he's in right now, he can help lead us that way. So thank you. And we will adjourn committee at 7:30 p.m. Thank you, everybody.